Hi, Sam here, and I was, or am, am a BookTube prize judge. I reviewed 6 books from the category Nonfiction Group E, and I'm going to tell you today how I ended up landing on my ranking of the books and give you a mini review and maybe influence your reading. So again, I ranked the books from category Nonfiction Group E. I have not sought out any of the other reviewers in this category to see how they decided to land on their rankings. Spoiler alert, all the books that I ranked 1 through 3 ended up going on to the next round, and that was clearly the most popular opinion in the group, I guess. And another spoiler, I liked all of the books in my category, and that made it especially difficult to judge these books. Before I even started judging the books, I was kind of curious about how these books landed in Goodreads, and this is the order that it was in online on Goodreads before I even judged the books. And I knew going into it that it wasn't going to end up that way, but I thought, oh, okay, well, I kind of have a general idea of like where books would land in my personal opinion, and that is not how things landed. The way I ended up rating the books was kind of unusual because I liked all the books so much. It made it really difficult for me to narrow down which one should be number 1, like 1 through 3. Because a lot of the books, what I ended up doing is creating like a rubric in my head. I should make an actual rubric because it might help people, but because these are nonfiction books, none of the books are related. I ended up ranking the books based on how well the book established its motive and how it executed its, I'll call it a thesis, and how well it was written, and how like on topic I felt that people should be reading. If it's like a topic that, yeah, everyone needs to read this book, and this is a book that I would push on people. So I would push all of these books on people, with maybe exception to book number 6, which no surprise for Goodreads rating, current ranking, Julian Barnes' The Man in the Red Coat, which is about Julian Barnes. We'll call it a mild obsession, but he happened upon this painting by John Singer Sargent. This is the painting that which kind of triggered his, we'll call it research. There really isn't a thesis or anything of this sort with this book, which is one of the reasons why it's like, it's just about the Belle Epoque in general. You learn about different musicians, actors, and painters, artists in general, writers, Oscar Wilde, Sandra Bernard, Montesquieu. You learn about these people, and and also the center of the subject is Samuel Posey, who is a renowned surgeon. He became, we'll call him the godfather of gynecology and surgery, but I would also argue urology, and he was best known in college for his ability to do surgery on bellies and make it successful and whatever. But I mean, you learn a lot about dandies, and I learned a lot about nothing. And at the core of this book, there's a line that's repeated over and over again, and that is, we cannot know. What also got me about this book was that there really aren't any chapters in it, so it's a little bit overwhelming to navigate. It's about innovation and who's sleeping with whom, basically. It was entertaining. Beyond entertaining. In fact, I have this, and I'm dying to read. This is his Booker Prize winning novel, and if anyone wants to do a read along. I'm probably thinking I'm going to be picking this up sometime this summer. Well, let me know, because I found this wildly entertaining. I'm giving it 4 stars. I ended up buying this book because I absolutely want to reread it. I thought it was hilarious, wildly hilarious, and entertaining. So, number 6 on my list. My number 5 pick was really difficult, and honestly, I thought that this book was going to go forward. I'm probably the reason why it didn't. And it's Vesper Flights by Helen Macdonald. I'm sorry. I know that World of Wonder is moving on, and I think there's another book about fungi that is kind of similar. It's a collection of essays, and Helen says that this book is I think they're her favorite essays, or they're just general favorite essays for the people. This is like a cabinet of curiosities. It's just a hodgepodge of random essays and random notions or observations. They're essays about Helen's experience with interactions with nature and other human interactions with nature. And the topics, a lot of them are about birds. The title essay is about swifts, and a vesper flight is when, the swift is just like chilling, eating or whatever, and then suddenly it goes boop, like it was raptured. And that's a vesper flight. And I learned a lot about the swifts, and I learned a lot about killing deer with your vehicle and going on mushroom hunting and going to what was it, Antarctica? I can't remember, but anyway, I recommend this highly, especially if you're really into nature reading. I am tempted to pick up H is for Hawk. Yes, and I'm sorry, it's not going forward, but it ended up in this position by default. I ranked number 4 on my list Kim Gatz's Black Wave, which is about the struggle for power in the Middle East. It is a history book. It's very much reminiscent of a textbook, which is why it ended up down on this end of the spectrum. I ended up ranking it over a fun, frilly book about nature, because this is a book that I think people need to read, especially those of us in Western culture, especially those of us in the United States, because the history that we get fed or, ingest in high school and in middle school it all starts with grassroots. We learn about our individual states and how the nation is born and, some Western civilization history, but very little about the Eastern and Middle Eastern cultures. And this actually talks about the power struggles and how it started in 1979 and it leads up to the death of Khashoggi in 2019. This is a well-crafted book, and there's a lot of interesting information. It's a lot of information, so it was so overwhelming I just couldn't push it into the top. Though this was Goodreads' number 1 pick, this ended up in my number 4 slot. It is getting a 5-star rating from me though, and I highly recommend it. And if you are a high school teacher and trying to incorporate some of the Middle Eastern studies into your culture classes, I highly recommend this as a resource. And yeah, go read it. Yeah. Now we're into the top 3. Again, all 3 of my top picks ended up moving forward into the quarterfinals, which I'm really thrilled about, and I'm rooting for all of these babies because, I loved them. The number 3 pick for me, I honestly didn't think that this would be moving forward into the top picks because I was afraid other people would think it was too niche. It is Milltown by Carrie Arsenault, and this book is about paper mill in Rumsford, Mexico, Maine. That's in the Acadia region. I am actually from Maine, so I have a personal bias towards this book. I'm not from that area in Maine. I was born further east, but my father worked for paper mills his entire life until he was forced into retirement as a result of disability in the early aughts. So yeah, I know about the paper mills. This book is at its core about how the mills are they're basically poisoning the people. Where there is a mill, there's likely a cancer cluster. And it's, I know that this isn't just isolated in a problem in Maine, but it's like a nationwide, I think it's probably a global problem. But this book does focus specifically on this one paper mill in Maine and how it's impacting its people and how people are getting sick, and they just take it as an inevitability that they're going to end up getting cancer at some point, and it's just heartbreaking. It's full of data and reasons why the government needs to get more involved with making sure that they're able to dispose of properly chemicals and things like that. And it's also about how she kind of feels like an interloper trying to butt in and help her people, because she, as an outsider, can see what's going on, but people are just like, whatever. So it's kind of tough, but it's something that people need to be very much aware of, especially if you live around a mill. So please read. Number 2, this is essential. This is a very 2020-ish book. We've got Fevers, Feuds, and Diamonds by Paul Farmer, and Paul is the founder of Partners in Health, and they in 2014 went to Africa to help with to aid their workers in the Ebola crisis that was going on. This book focuses on why this happened, how it started, and also how it can be prevented in the future, and why it was so poorly mismanaged. And at first, he did break it up so that he's talking about how the Ebola crisis, how Ebola itself, they think it started, and how it impacted the people who survived the Ebola, actually got Ebola and survived. And that was actually incredibly heartbreaking to read, because you're getting like firsthand accounts of actual survivors, and they have, most part, they have no family left to, because they all died from it. And the second part, they're talking about how war just spreads virus as well as colonization, and how that works, and it feeds into racism, which is also what seems to be pushing the virus. And he talks quite a bit about, because this book was coming out just as the coronavirus was kicking off, he does bring that in and factors about that in this book. It's really well crafted, and I ended up putting it all the way up here into my number 2 slot, because not only is it well crafted, but it's very touching, and it's something that we need to be reading, we need to understand, and we as people could, hone in on and focus on, because it's an actual crisis that's happening right now. While it's a different disease, it can happen again, and it's, these things are cyclical, and we need to focus on it. So it's a very good book, so yeah, go ahead and read it. And my number 1 pick is Fathoms by Rebecca Giggs. The World in the Whale. Subtitled The World in the Whale, which is literally what you're getting from this book. So Rebecca was one of the people, she's bearing witness, or she's a bystander on a beach in Australia. There is a beached juvenile humpback whale they've tried to get it back out to sea, and they just know that this whale's not going to make it, but it is a very slow death. And she is focusing on different features and what the animal could be going through, and how literally what the whale takes in, and how it mirrors what's happening in our world. So the book focuses on different aspects of the whale, like what the whale's calls, the whale's eye, and then like how people love whales, and how all of these things are damaging, and how they impact not only the animals themselves, but also how they're impacted in the world. And this is a very well crafted book because she just keeps coming back to that central theme, and it's really good. Like, it's just really well done. But they're just like a series of essays, but it's just so well meshed together that this was number one. It's definitely a 5-star read for me, and I highly recommend this to everybody to read because it's gorgeous. Interior and exterior. So that's how I rated books for the Octofinals for the BookTube prize award. What's it called? Anyway, if you're going to be reviewing books for the quarterfinals and the nonfiction categories, I hope I influenced your reading and rating in some way. Yeah. But if you did rate books for the BookTube prize, let me know. I'd love to know. I've been watching some of the videos. I have not watched any from my same group yet. I'm gonna go and seek those out now. If you did, just let me know down below, and because I want to know how you ended up ranking too. So that's it for now. You should be subscribed to me, and I will be back with more videos and on book love.